Most people think staying calm means pretending nothing bothers you, as if strength is about ignoring the world. But real power isn't numbness. It's mastery of your reactions. It's when you stop giving your peace away to outside noise, when your center remains steady no matter the storm. Calmness doesn't come when life gets easy. It comes when you choose serenity, even while life is unpredictable. True strength isn't about shutting down emotions. It's about feeling deeply while still directing where that energy flows. Anyone can lose themselves in frustration or fear, but it takes wisdom to feel everything without letting it take control. The goal isn't to stop caring. It's to care in the right way. You protect your energy by refusing to pour it into what you cannot influence. When you meet someone who seems unshakable in chaos, don't assume they're detached. Most likely, they've discovered a rare truth. Emotions are signals, not commands. They feel sadness, anger, or doubt as strongly as anyone else. But instead of letting those feelings drive their actions, they step back, observe, and then decide their response with intention. Think of it like a skilled athlete. Serena Williams doesn't win matches because she never feels pressure. She wins because she channels the nerves into focus. The same applies to life. Mastery of emotions doesn't mean ignoring them. It means directing them toward what matters most. Anger at injustice can become fuel for progress. Fear of failing can sharpen preparation. Loss can expand compassion. That's emotional intelligence in action. I once knew a woman who used to overanalyze every interaction. If a colleague didn't greet her warmly, she wondered all day what she had done wrong. If a message wasn't answered immediately, she assumed the friendship was ending. Her peace depended on the moods of others. But then she made a quiet decision. No one else will control my energy again. She didn't stop caring about people. She didn't wall off her heart. Instead, she separated her worth from other people's behavior. She realized that most actions of others had nothing to do with her. With that shift, her life transformed. She still feels emotions as strongly as before, but she no longer drowns in them. When someone is distant, she assumes they might be struggling, not that she failed. When plans fall through, she adapts without taking it personally. That change didn't turn her into someone new. It revealed her truest self. Her sensitivity became her gift, not her weakness. The same heart that once broke easily now loves freely, without fear of being destroyed. The same mind that once obsessed endlessly now solves problems with clarity. That is the art of feeling without breaking. When you learn this, you unlock freedom. You remain open to joy without being crushed by sorrow. You can care for others without carrying their entire emotional weight on your shoulders. You can love deeply without losing yourself in someone else's storm. And here's the key: peace doesn't arrive by chance. It's built like a fortress. Every day, you choose your focus. Every day, you decide whether to fight battles that aren't yours or save your strength for what truly matters. The world will always throw noise, opinions, and distractions at you. But peace begins when you stop trying to control what was never yours to control. Think of Mahatma Gandhi. He lived in the middle of constant conflict, yet he carried within him an unshakable calm that became his greatest strength. He couldn't control the forces against him, but he mastered his response, and that response moved nations. You can do the same in your own life. You can't control whether others approve of you, but you can control whether you live aligned with your values. You can't control whether life always feels fair, but you can control whether you meet it with resilience or resistance. Every time you choose response over reaction, you grow stronger. Every time you shift your energy from panic to purpose, you build momentum. Each moment of calm in chaos is a layer of unshakable strength being added to your foundation. So ask yourself, what can you truly control today? Your thoughts, your choices, the words you speak, the effort you give. the kindness you offer. These are always in your hands, even when everything else feels uncertain. And when you focus here, life stops tossing you around like a leaf in the wind. You stand like a rooted tree, steady, centered, alive. This is where true confidence begins, not in pretending you don't feel, but in mastering how you transform what you feel. That's the kind of calm no chaos can steal. There is a simple but life-changing truth. Energy flows where your focus goes. Yet most people spend their strength battling things they cannot change. They argue with those who refuse to listen. They stress about events beyond their reach. They lose sleep over the opinions of others. And in doing so, they hand away their power. But the moment you shift attention to what you can influence, everything changes. Your attitude, your habits, the way you show up for yourself. Suddenly, life no longer feels like a storm that tosses you around. It feels like a sea you know how to sail. I knew a man who built a business during difficult economic times. Competitors around him panicked, blaming the market, complaining about circumstances. Many cut corners, hoping to survive. But he chose a different path. Instead of obsessing over the economy, he doubled down on what he could control. Excellent service, better systems, stronger connections with his clients. While others collapsed, he expanded, not because conditions were easy, but because his focus was disciplined. This principle applies everywhere. You cannot control if someone loves you back, but you can control how openly you give love. You cannot control whether the job goes to you, but you can control how prepared, passionate, and persistent you show up. You cannot control aging, but you can control how you nurture your body and sharpen your mind. When you claim ownership of your choices, you no longer live at the mercy of chance. You step out of the role of victim and into the role of author. You stop being dragged by circumstances and begin creating momentum. And here's something most people miss. Emotions themselves are not enemies. They are fuel. Anger can either burn you from within or ignite your determination. Fear can either paralyze or sharpen your preparation. Sadness can either sink you or deepen your compassion. Every emotion is raw energy, and energy can either destroy or build. Albert Einstein once said, "Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another." That's exactly how emotions work. The fire inside you is never wasted. It's either shaping you or consuming you, depending on how you direct it. Think of emotion like water. In a river, it carves valleys and sustains life, but left uncontrolled, it floods and destroys. The same feeling that crushes one person can empower another. The difference lies in channeling, not in resisting. I once met a young woman who faced rejection after rejection early in her career. Applications unanswered, interviews that went nowhere, ideas dismissed. Each no could have convinced her she wasn't enough. Instead, she turned rejection into practice. Every closed door became training for her resilience. Every doubt from others became fuel to sharpen her craft. Today, she's a respected leader, not because rejection disappeared, but because she learned to convert it into strength. This is what I call emotional alchemy, the art of transforming what hurts into what helps. It's not about silencing your feelings. It's about listening to them, learning from them, and then deciding how to use them. Resilience is born exactly this way. People imagine it's a gift you're born with, but resilience is a muscle. It grows only when tested. It's forged in repetition, the daily act of rising again, even when it would be easier to give up. Consider Thomas Edison, who failed thousands of times before perfecting the light bulb. Each attempt wasn't wasted. It was another repetition of resilience, another proof to himself that he could keep going. That is why his invention didn't just change the world. It symbolized persistence itself. You don't become unbreakable because life gets easy. You become unbreakable because you keep standing back up. Every failure you survive becomes training. Every disappointment you endure becomes wisdom. Every challenge you face strengthens your foundation for the next. It's like a tree standing through strong winds. Each storm deepens its roots, forcing it to anchor more firmly. Without storms, the roots would remain shallow. Without pressure, no strength would grow. So here's the truth. Resilience is not about never falling. It's about never staying down. It's not about being fearless. It's about moving forward, even with fear in your chest. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about proving to yourself, again and again, that you can carry it and emerge stronger on the other side. Every time you get back up, you're rewriting your identity. You're teaching your mind that you are capable of more than you once believed. And with each repetition, confidence stops being something you borrow from others. It becomes something you've earned, something unshakable. So the next time life challenges you, don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, ask, "What strength can I build here? What lesson is this moment teaching me?" Because hidden inside every trial is training for the future version of you that will rise from it. That's the power of choice. That's the power of turning chaos into clarity, pain into purpose, and setbacks into stepping stones. One of the greatest powers you can develop is detachment. Not detachment from life itself, but detachment from outcomes you cannot force. When you cling too tightly, whether to a goal, a timeline, or another person, you create desperation. And desperation doesn't attract success, it pushes it away. Have you ever noticed how opportunities seem to appear when you stop chasing them with frantic energy? When you loosen your grip, you suddenly create space for better outcomes than you originally imagined. The truth is, calm confidence is magnetic. Desperation repels. Think of how an Olympic runner approaches the starting line. The nervous amateur is tense, breathing shallow, desperate to prove themselves. But the champion? They walk with steady focus, knowing preparation is already done. That energy speaks louder than words. It's not about forcing, it's about trusting the process. Detachment isn't giving up. It's caring so much that you're willing to do the work without demanding instant results. It's giving your best while releasing the need for everything to unfold on your schedule. That shift changes everything. Your energy becomes lighter, your presence becomes more grounded, and your results, ironically, improve. I once met an entrepreneur who nearly burned himself out chasing success. He worked endless hours, neglected his health, strained his relationships, all because he was terrified of falling behind. Yet the harder he pushed, the more success seemed to slip away. Only when he stopped forcing outcomes and started focusing on consistent quality did things change. He began sleeping, reconnecting, enjoying the process again. And that's when growth finally arrived. This is the paradox. When you stop needing success, you often find it faster. Why? Because you're no longer clouded by fear and urgency. You're moving from clarity, not from panic. And this applies not only to goals, but also to relationships. Real love is not possession. It's wanting the best for someone, even if that doesn't include you. Real leadership isn't controlling others. It's guiding without needing to dominate. Real growth isn't proving your worth. It's living from it. When your happiness no longer depends on external validation, you gain freedom. You stop performing for approval and start acting from authenticity. You stop waiting for circumstances to line up perfectly and begin creating from within. That's why the art of silence is so powerful. Not silence from fear, but silence from strength. You don't need to respond to every criticism. You don't need to fight every argument. You don't need to explain yourself endlessly. In a world where everyone fights to be the loudest voice in the room, silence carries weight. The person who speaks rarely but with thoughtfulness is heard far more than the one who shouts constantly. Silence signals confidence. It says, "I know who I am. I don't need to prove it to you." I once knew a man who wasted years jumping into every debate, politics, business, trivial arguments about movies. He always had to have the last word. He thought this made him strong. In truth, it drained him and exhausted those around him. One day, he chose peace over proving a point. He stopped entering battles that weren't worth fighting. His words became fewer, but far more powerful, and people listened to him more than ever before. This is the essence of self-mastery, choosing where your energy goes. Not everything deserves your attention. Not everyone deserves your explanation. Not every situation needs your reaction. When you embrace this, you begin to live lighter. You stop carrying the weight of convincing others. You stop tying your peace to whether people understand you. You realize your path doesn't require permission. It only requires consistency. History is full of people who embodied this truth. Mother Teresa didn't argue with critics who misunderstood her mission. She simply kept serving. Leonardo da Vinci didn't defend his genius to those who doubted. He let his art speak. Greatness rarely wastes time proving itself. It proves itself by action, not argument. So ask yourself, how much energy are you giving away trying to explain, defend, or convince? What could you build with that same energy if you redirected it toward your vision? Imagine the clarity you'd gain if you stopped needing closure from others. We've been taught that healing comes from apologies, from explanations, from perfect endings. But often, closure never arrives from the outside. People leave without reasons. Relationships end without clear answers. And waiting for those answers keeps us stuck in the past. Real closure is created, not received. It's the moment you decide, their silence is my answer. Their actions are my explanation. And I no longer need more than that to move forward. When you stop waiting for others to close the chapter, you reclaim your power. You no longer bleed energy into wounds that won't be healed by someone else's words. You choose to heal on your own terms. I once knew a woman who waited years for closure after a breakup. She replayed conversations, analyzed every message, begged for explanations that never came. Her life stood still. One day, she realized his absence was already an answer. From that moment, she stopped waiting. She began writing a new chapter, not because she got the apology she wanted, but because she gave herself permission to move on. That is true freedom, when your peace no longer depends on anyone else's words or decisions. When you decide your healing, your worth, and your future belong entirely to you. There's a myth that strength means never bending, never showing pain, never doubting. But the truth is the opposite. Resilience is built not in the absence of struggle, but in the practice of rising after each fall. It's not a trait you're born with. It's a skill you build, rep after rep, day after day. People often look at unshakable individuals and assume they were simply made that way. They see someone handle crisis with composure, bounce back from disappointment, or stand tall after rejection, and they whisper, "They must be different from me." But they're not. They've just trained themselves through countless repetitions of persistence. Consider Michael Jordan. Before becoming one of the greatest athletes of all time, he was cut from his high school basketball team. Most would have quit. Instead, he used that pain as fuel, practicing relentlessly day after day. His greatness wasn't born in talent alone. It was forged in the fire of rejection, discipline, and relentless repetition. That's what resilience is. Doing the hard thing again and again until it becomes who you are. You don't get stronger because life is easy. You get stronger because you keep showing up when life is difficult. Think of failure as resistance training for your character. Every setback tears the fibers of your belief, but when you choose to get back up, those fibers rebuild stronger. Just like muscles, Resilience only grows when tested. I once knew a man who failed in business multiple times. He lost money he couldn't afford to lose, faced doubt from everyone around him, and questioned himself deeply. But instead of labeling himself a failure, he treated each setback like an education. He analyzed what went wrong, adjusted his approach, and tried again. After years of repeated attempts, he finally succeeded. To outsiders, it looked like sudden success. But beneath the surface were scars, lessons, and resilience built layer by layer. This is why resilience feels so rare, because it demands persistence when giving up would be easier. But the more you repeat the act of standing up, the more natural it becomes. One day you wake up realizing, nothing can break me anymore. I might bend, but I won't snap. And here's the beautiful part. Resilience doesn't just prepare you for challenges. It changes your entire way of living. You stop fearing failure because you know you can recover. You stop avoiding risk because you trust your ability to adapt. You stop being paralyzed by uncertainty because you've trained yourself to move forward even when afraid. Look at the mighty oak tree. It doesn't resist the storm by refusing to move. It bends with the wind, its roots digging deeper each time. That's what life is training you to do, to grow roots so strong that no storm can uproot you. But resilience alone is not enough. To truly thrive, you must also build peace, like constructing a fortress around your inner world. Peace isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you deliberately create with boundaries, habits, and clarity. Most people chase peace outside themselves. They think it will come with the perfect relationship, the right job, or a certain amount of money. But real peace doesn't arrive from circumstances. It's built from within. It's the result of choices you make every single day. Building peace means deciding what you allow into your life and what you keep out. It means protecting your energy the same way you would protect your most valuable possession. It means being intentional about who you spend time with, which conversations you join, and which battles are worth fighting. I once knew a woman who said yes to everything. Every request for help, every invitation, every demand from others. She believed this made her kind and valuable, but in truth it left her drained, anxious, and unfulfilled. Only when she began setting boundaries, saying no to what didn't align with her values, did she finally find calm. Her calendar became lighter, her energy sharper, her heart more at ease. That's what peace looks like. Choosing clarity over chaos, focus over distraction, and alignment over approval. Think of peace as architecture. The foundation is your values, knowing who you are and what matters most. The walls are your boundaries, keeping out what drains you while letting in what strengthens you. The windows are your perspectives, allowing fresh ideas and light to flow through. The doors are your choices, opening to opportunities that fit your vision and closing to those that don't. And just like any structure, peace requires maintenance. You can't build it once and forget it. You must protect it, reinforce it, and repair it when cracks appear. Look at the life of the Dalai Lama. Surrounded by challenges, he maintains extraordinary serenity, not because the world around him is quiet, but because he built peace within himself and guards it carefully. His calm presence is a reminder that true power doesn't come from controlling the external world. It comes from mastering the internal one. So ask yourself, what habits are robbing you of peace? Which commitments are draining your energy? Which people leave you restless instead of restored? Once you identify them, you can begin building the walls and gates of your own fortress of calm. When you choose to protect your peace, everything else improves. Your health strengthens. Your relationships deepen. Your work becomes more focused. You show up in the world not scattered, but centered. And that is one of the greatest gifts you can give both yourself and others. There is a powerful shift that happens when you stop living for permission. Too many people wait to shine. They wait until they've reached the goal, until they've earned the title, until someone else validates their worth. They tell themselves, I'll be confident when I succeed. I'll feel like a leader once I'm promoted. I'll carry myself with pride when I've proven myself. But waiting keeps you stuck. Confidence doesn't arrive after success. Success arrives after confidence. You attract opportunities not by sitting quietly in doubt, but by carrying yourself as if you already belong. Think of how a musician steps onto the stage. The ones who captivate us aren't necessarily the most experienced. They're the ones who act like the stage is theirs before the first note even plays. They radiate belief before a single chord, and because they believe, the audience believes too. That's the secret. You don't fake it. You become it. You embody the version of yourself you're growing into, and reality eventually catches up. I once knew a young man just starting his career. He worked an entry-level job, lived in a small apartment, and had little to his name. But he carried himself with presence, dressed like he already had the role he wanted, spoke with conviction even when he was still learning, and walked into every room as though he belonged there. At first, people laughed. Some called him arrogant. Others said he was too confident too soon. But over time, that presence attracted opportunities, mentors, and respect. Years later, he had built exactly the life he once carried only in his imagination. What changed? His circumstances didn't transform first. His identity did. This isn't about pretending. Pretending is deception. This is about alignment. You align your behavior with your future self, not your current situation. You ask yourself, how would the version of me who already succeeded act right now? And then you live from that place. Would that version of you procrastinate or stay consistent? Would they settle for negative company or surround themselves with inspiration? Would they play small or speak with courage? When you begin filtering every choice through that lens, you stop waiting for transformation. You become transformation. And here's the magic. When you shift your identity, your standards rise. You stop accepting mediocrity because you know the person you're becoming wouldn't. You start treating your time as valuable, your health as priceless, and your relationships as sacred. Suddenly, small choices, waking up early, reading instead of scrolling, exercising instead of making excuses, aren't chores. They're declarations of who you are. This mindset changes everything. Instead of asking, what do I get from this? You ask, who do I become through this? Success stops being a distant prize and starts being a daily practice. History shows us this again and again. Before Muhammad Ali became the world's most famous boxer, he already called himself the greatest. People mocked him, said he was too loud, too bold. But he wasn't pretending. He was stepping into the identity he knew he could grow into. And eventually, the world caught up with his vision. You can do the same. You don't need to wait for external evidence to act like the person you want to be. Begin now. Carry yourself with the energy of someone who has already won. Make decisions like the person who has already achieved the dream. Speak with the conviction of someone who knows their time is valuable. The world responds differently when you move from this energy. Doors open. People listen. Opportunities appear. Not because the universe is handing you magic, but because your actions, choices, and presence align with a higher standard. This is why belief is so critical. Doubt weakens your stride. Belief sharpens it. Doubt hesitates. Belief commits. Doubt waits for evidence. Belief creates it. So start asking yourself different questions. What would my best self choose in this moment? How would the person I'm becoming carry themselves today? If success were already mine, how would I treat my time, my energy, my relationships? The answers will guide you to live in alignment with your vision, not in some distant future, but right now. And here's the truth. One day, you'll look back and realize the person you imagined became the person you are. The confidence that once felt like practice will feel natural. The standards that once felt demanding will feel effortless. The vision you once held will simply look like your life. That's the power of living as though you've already won. It's not arrogance. It's faith in action. It's the courage to embody your future before it arrives. Because success isn't a destination, it's a way of walking. And the moment you begin walking like the winner you're becoming, you've already stepped into victory. There comes a point when you realize that life isn't about avoiding storms. It's about learning to move through them with grace. Peace, resilience, detachment, confidence. All of these are not separate lessons, but threads that weave together into one unshakable fabric, the art of living with intention. When you stop giving power to what you cannot control, you reclaim your energy. When you channel your emotions instead of being controlled by them, you turn pain into purpose. When you practice resilience, you prove to yourself, again and again, that you are capable of rising. When you let go of desperate attachment, you free yourself to move with discipline instead of panic. When you build peace as a daily practice, you create a sanctuary within yourself no storm can destroy. And when you embody the future version of yourself now, you accelerate into the life you were meant to live. This is the journey of growth. Not a straight path, but a cycle of choosing again and again who you will be, regardless of circumstances. Think about history's greatest leaders, innovators, and creators. They weren't handed perfect conditions. They weren't spared from doubt, rejection, or loss. What set them apart wasn't immunity to struggle. It was mastery over response. Nelson Mandela spent decades in prison, yet he emerged not with bitterness, but with vision. Oprah Winfrey rose from hardship to become a global voice, not because she never felt fear, but because she refused to let fear dictate her destiny. Their circumstances didn't define them. Their choices did. And the same is true for you. Every day, life offers you two options: reaction or response. Reaction is automatic. It gives power to whatever is loudest around you. Response is intentional. It directs your energy toward what truly matters. Reaction says, "They made me angry." Response says, "I felt anger, but I chose my path forward." Reaction says, "I failed, so I must not be enough." Response says, "I failed, so I've found another way not to quit." Reaction says, "I'll wait until things are perfect." Response says, "I'll begin now and grow along the way." One keeps you stuck. The other builds your future. And here's the truth most people never learn. Greatness is not built in grand moments. It's built in the small choices repeated daily. It's built when you choose to rise instead of stay down, to focus instead of scatter, to protect your peace instead of hand it away, to walk with confidence before the evidence arrives. Like drops of water shaping stone, each small decision accumulates. And one day you look back and realize your character has been carved into strength, your path into clarity, your life into something extraordinary. So if you feel overwhelmed, remember, you don't need to control everything. You only need to control what's in front of you right now. Your words, your choices, your effort. That's where power lives. If you feel emotions too deeply, remember, they're not here to break you. They're here to fuel you. Let anger sharpen your drive. Let sadness expand your compassion. Let fear prepare you. Let joy remind you why you keep going. If you face setbacks, remember, they're not signs of weakness. They're invitations to grow stronger. Each time you get back up, you're not the same as before. You're wiser, tougher, more prepared for what's next. If you feel desperate for results, remember, release the timeline. Trust the process. Excellence done daily will always attract opportunity. Pressure pushes it away, but patience pulls it closer. If you long for peace, remember, it's not out there. It's built by your choices, your boundaries, your clarity. Protect it like the treasure it is. And if you're waiting for permission to step into the life you want, stop waiting. You don't need approval to rise. You don't need evidence to believe. You don't need the perfect moment to begin. The perfect moment is now, because the truth is, you've already won the moment you choose to live with intention. You've already succeeded the moment you decide to embody the future self you dream of. You've already triumphed the moment you take control of your focus, your energy, and your response. So walk forward with calm, with confidence, with conviction, not because life is easy, but because you've chosen to be strong, not because the path is smooth, but because you've learned how to walk it with grace. Remember this: storms don't destroy those who know how to dance in the rain. Challenges don't break those who see them as training. Failure doesn't define those who keep rising. And peace doesn't belong to those who wait for it. It belongs to those who build it, protect it, and carry it within themselves. Your life is your story, and you are not here to play small, to seek constant approval, or to wait for permission. You are here to lead, to grow, to shine, to create. So start now. Live as though you've already won, because in choosing to live this way, you already have.